The Gary Sutton Show, live from Washington, D.C., as we are coming to you from the Hold Their Feet to the Fire event, sponsored by the Federation for American Immigration Reform. And I do want to say, and this is the first time in Washington history, that in the interest of openness and transparency, FAIR has covered our travel and broadcast expenses for this particular trip. So that's it. So the line I'm talking to you on this morning is paid for by FAIR. However, I will say this to you. My ideas are my own today, and I hope yours are as well, as they always are here on the Gary Sutton Show. And we are so happy to be here talking about immigration and also a lot of other things today as well. But with us this morning is Michael Harrison, who is the editor of Talkers Magazine, and I'll be so bold as to say a pretty good friend who I've seen for years and years and years. And Michael, great to have you on the show this morning. Thanks so much.
It's an honor to be called your friend, and it's great to be on the program. Thank you.
Michael, you are the editor of what we call in the talkers industry the Bible, so to speak, and people look to you for all kinds of knowledge. And, you know, this event, we bring together 50-odd people, really odd, all of us as talk show hosts from around the country to get together and talk about immigration, which is one of the subjects out there that, you know, part of the daily debate. But the power of talk radio is really something that's unique right now.
Tremendous influence. Talk radio has influence, and influence is something that all of radio can use. I mean, there's the difference between how many people are listening and how closely they're listening and care. And talk radio really gets to the heart of important issues and creates the need for public discussion and the availability of public discussion. Otherwise, we're going to be living in a very plastic, one-dimensional world if we didn't have this kind of media. And I think it's very important that we protect this kind of discussion. People ask me, where do I stand on immigration? Where I stand on the immigration issue is that we should be able to talk about it.
Exactly. and that's the point. And so when we have this session every year, and I wanted to start off with you today because of this talk radio phenomenon, I guess, is the idea that I don't have to change your mind and you don't have to change my mind, but we can give each other something to think about and challenge and be challenged as we go out there. And I think this is a subject that is not easily solved. You know, we have a lot of people in this country who are here, but I think the idea that we don't close our minds to other people's ideas and maybe even try to raise the level of discussion is really what our job is.
Well, it depends on who we are. I wish there were more people in broadcasting like you, because you're becoming a rarer breed, Gary, and I want to give you that.
It has nothing to do with age, right?
Well, I hope not, and I certainly don't want to date myself, but the fact of the matter is that a lot of people preach to the choir and really reaffirm their listeners' already held views, as opposed to try to create discussion that we all can learn from. I think the biggest problem in journalism and media today and politics is our culture seeks victory rather than seeks truth. And think about what that means.
Yeah.
You seek victory as opposed to seeking truth, even if victory comes at the expense of truth. And that is a very destructive syndrome, and it's growing and growing in this country. And it's tied into the corporate money aspect to media and journalism.
You know, I'm an old teacher, and I guess I learned about truth early, and my parents were relatively non-political. It's not that I don't have views on things, but, you know, it's hard for anybody out there anymore. People say, well, you're carrying the water for somebody. And, it's hard to believe that you're not, that you just are trying to think through it and figure it out, because I do think truth exists in everything. We just don't always find it.
Well, there are many truths.
Yes.
When I say seeking truth, I'm not saying my truth or some empirical truth.
No.
It's the attitude of seeking truth, that if you and I were to have a debate and you were to say something that was counter to what I'm saying, but deep in my mind and my heart, I go, oh my gosh, he's right. He made a point. Most people would say, well, I got to come up with some answer and prove him wrong anyway.
Right.
Can you imagine if somebody in a debate today said, you make a good point. I'm going to have to rethink that. You've changed my mind. Kudos to you.
Yeah.
That would be great, but it doesn't happen.
I have a friend, Joe Sestak, who ran for Congress against Pat Toomey, and he lost, and he's a Democrat. That has nothing to do with me, but we talk about ideas, and we disagree on a number of things, but we both come back and debate the next time again. He'll say, you make a great point, or I'll say you make a great point, and then it gives you something else to think about. And that's what I think that, from my perspective as a talk show host, our job is in this kind of setting, as well as any other kind of setting, is to give people things to think about and even raise the level of discussion that we can possibly have.
Well, do you get negative feedback from a lot of your listeners who are disappointed in you because you didn't tell them what they thought you were standing for? Oh, well, then you've developed an audience that is reflective of your own open-mindedness.
Yeah.
And that often happens, that the audience reflects the host. If a host is one-dimensional and single-minded and doesn't have an open mind, you usually get those kind of listeners.
Well, we had a person call yesterday, for example, that we were chatting about, and just happened to be chatting on immigration from what Jeb Bush had said over the weekend. And so this guy said, well, my grandparents were both Mexicans, and they came here to the United States to become American citizens. And he said they came here, they worked hard, they became citizens, they've done well, they're very happy, they're proud of the country. And I said, did they come here legally? And he said, no. And I said, okay, so they came here illegally. He said, yes, they did. He said, I'm making you an honorary Latino citizen today. I said, well, thank you. I'm now Scotch, Irish, and Latino, and I'm very proud of all three. But my point is, I said, the fact that they didn't come here legally, is that okay? He said, well, they wanted to be Americans. I said, so did the people that are standing at the other side of the door. So I'm asking, what do we do with them? Do we then say we are a nation of laws? Do we say we're a nation of laws when convenient? I said, I just want to pose the question for you to think about. And that's what we did. And we raised it. It wasn't a matter of, I said, if I were where your grandparents would have been, I would have been doing the same thing, because it's a great land of opportunity. So we're going to come back. We're going to take a very quick break. We're with Michael Harrison, editor of Talkers Magazine. We'll take a break. We'll be right back. This is the Gary Sutton Show right here on News Radio 910 WSBA.